Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever and however you're watching this. Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the Surround Sound podcast. I am your host, R. Hunter Jr., the truth and not a rumor. In a few moments, I will bring on my guest, Krystal Wadlington, aka Krystal the Creative. She is an illustrator and art teacher from Kansas City, Missouri, and we'll be talking about some of her educational materials, the why, the how, and all of those things. On today's show, we will get into a myriad of different topics. Of course, current events will be one of them. We'll be talking about the simmering rivalry between Beyonce and possibly Erykah Badu. Also, Issa Rae will be on tap, as well as Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani, and the Kansas City Royals inducting Bo Jackson into their Hall of Fame. Also, of course, since we're talking to Kansas City's very own, we'll have to get into speaking about the Kansas City Chiefs, and quite possibly we'll give a little bit of information in regard to the parade. Also, on this week's show, we'll be telling you the importance of history. I have a very significant sign of the times entitled Historical Importance. But enough of talking. We have a very special guest. Our guest this week has taught art and illustration for over 14 years. Currently, she is an educator at Kansas City Public Schools Signature School, an African-centered college prep school focused on African and African American studies history. Today, we have our very special guest, Krystal Wadlington, aka Krystal the Creative.
Hey everybody, how you doing today?
Hey, what's good, Krystal? How you living, ma?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Hey, I'm absolutely awesome. I cannot complain at all. I've been waiting and wanting to do a interview with you for the longest. I think what you're doing, you live up to your name. It is so creative. It's so ingenious. It is something that is needed and wanted not just by African Americans, but America in general. And this is definitely a good way for that to happen. You've been teaching art for 14 years.
Yes. Well, actually, I kind of interrupted that. I started in Memphis. So when it was Memphis City Schools, I
Yeah,
started
Glow.
art. Yeah. So I was at Rains Haven Elementary.
Yeah.
And I taught there until they closed in 2010. No, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So then I moved to Kansas City and I actually started teaching second grade. So I went
Oh,
from
really?
art to teaching second grade in
Uh-huh.
2016 when I moved up here to Kansas City. And then I taught in the classroom for 4 years, and I went back to art. But the whole time I've been here in Kansas City, I have been teaching at the African Centered College Prep, which helped me create my books because of what we do there.
Okay. Since we're there, tell us more about what you do there and how that transformed, and then we'll get into how this transformed into your coloring book series.
Okay, so when I started teaching there in 2016, I was teaching second grade. But the African Centered School is modeled around pretty much centering the African child into African and African American history. So we teach the history, but it's infused in everything we teach. So if we're
Mm.
learning math, we're talking about African American studies. So, for example, we can be teaching about the civil rights movement, and you can take information from the civil rights movement and incorporate it into making a graph or making word problems or things like that. So we pretty much infuse African and African American history in all of our curriculum. They also teach centered. They use it in Guzo Saba, so they use like those rules, and we work as a village, a lot of those different principles that we teach throughout the whole entire school. So when I was in the classroom, I was teaching African American studies, then I go to art, it's pretty much the same. So, and then each
That's
month we have a theme that we center around. So, for example, when we first get back to school, we're talking about the African diaspora. So, we're teaching kids about where we came from, what was brought over here from Africa, how we influenced the culture, things like that. And we go into talking about Marcus Garvey, the Black Seminoles, Kwanzaa. So each month is something different.
woo. That is awesome. That is an awesome way to open the show, young lady. That is dope. That is dope. Some of those names, Black Seminoles, Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, Benjamin Banneker. I heard those terms. I heard those terms of those names, but I really didn't get a good grasp of why they were so important to later in life, and to be infusing our children with those things as early as possible is truly remarkable. I don't know where I want to go next. Let's go here. Why is it so ingenious? I feel okay. Let me put my words. Don't let me put my words on you. I feel like this book series, this coloring book series, is one of the most ingenious things that I've heard of in a long time. Why is it so important that we start at such a base level with our children in giving them history about African and African Americans?
I think is important to start. And I think back to when I was in school. You may be different because you grew up in Memphis, where you have a lot of Black teachers, and you're just surrounded by the culture. I grew up in Kansas City, in Grandview, actually. Okay. I never had a Black teacher. So it was like when we learned about our history, it was pretty much we came as slaves, and then Martin Luther King came, and we had civil rights, and that's it. We didn't learn about anything else. We didn't have that that being able to see other people that look like us, to have type of pride in your skin tone, pride in how your hair looks, and things like that. There was pretty much one way of thinking how Black people should be, and it was a lot of, and then also at that time, Africa was looked at as this poor, horrible place to be,
dark time.
Exactly. So I feel like in order to kind of squash those stereotypes, and also to squash the idea of I come from this horrible place, we had these horrible experiences here, I don't see anybody that looks like me, that we need to instill in them that there's a whole lot more to your history than just Dr. King's slavery and civil rights. Even though you do need to learn about that, there's still when you think about Africa, I know when we was growing up, we thought about the Ethiopians because that's what we saw on TV. But now in one of my books, you can learn about the African kings and queens, and that we come from a continent that had the most natural resources than any place. We had kings, we had empires, we had queens, that fought against these other nations and things like that. And I think that's just important, just to instill in our children and adults, because I didn't learn a lot of this stuff till I started teaching at the school. I was in my mid-30s, that it kind of boosts your confidence in who you are, who you were created to be, that you didn't come here by accident, that you didn't come from, we had slavery that interrupted our history. We're not the product of just slavery, and it's a lot of that mindset that you come from something greater. And so that even though my present situation may not be what I want it to be, I can achieve more.
Krystal, did I write it wrong? I thought you were a teacher. Should I have put a preacher?
My dad would love to hear that, but no.
But not quite. Not quite.
No.
What you said is spot on. I actually see your books, some of your books in the back.
Mhm.
Let's look at, if you have this one behind you, the Bold Leader series.
Okay.
If could you show us real quick, just to so we can see the front cover possibly?
Okay, so which one? You want to start with the first?
Yeah,
You
let's
want
start with the first Bold Leader series. I want to hear more about
That's not the
why
first.
you picked certain leaders to go into your book. Like, what was the thought process? Like I said, you mentioned Garvey, you mentioned MLK. I'm sure you may have Malcolm X in there somewhere. W.E.B. Benjamin Banneker, as I've stated earlier. How do we put certain people in? And you know what? Also, speaking of leaders, Shirley Chisholm, since we're still in International Women's Month, how do you pick who is going in?
I picked people in my book that little known, like people may not know that much about.
Okay.
Like, and I'm thinking about children. So I do have in my book Malcolm X. I have Rosa Parks, and of course I have Dr. King.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I also have people like Fannie Lou Hamer
All right.
and
Famous
Medgar
singer,
Evers,
famous
and
civil rights guy. Yeah, yeah.
one of my personal favorites, Mary McLeod Bethune, because she was an educator. And
Excellent.
hold on, Memphis's own Ida B. Wells. So
That's
I
right.
people that may not be that known about, and then I do have Shirley Chisholm,
Okay.
and then this one I included on purposely the creators of the Black Panther Party, because I remember growing up, it was either you went with Dr. King or you was for Black Panther, but what we did not
Mhm.
realize is
Yes.
that they were kind of in conjunction. They had different tactics,
Yeah.
but pretty much the same thing. And of course, someone that I learned a lot about writing this is Stokely Carmichael, you know. And one
Yeah.
thing that I did learn as I've been researching is that Rosa Parks was a big supporter of Stokely Carmichael and a big supporter of the Black Panther Party. Like, I did not know that, but she was. So that's
That,
who's in the first one.
mhm.
Um, and
And how many of this series do you have?
I have 4 books in this series right
Okay.
now.
Uh-huh.
So I say right now because I have more that I want to do.
That's right. As history goes on and life goes on, you're going to have more people that you want to put in there. So I definitely uh, understand that. When we think about history, I'm just looking at my notes here as a means of access. Do we? I know the saying is you learn from history, so you're not doomed to repeat those same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
What is your view in regard to that?
I mean, I agree with that statement. My view of history, I look at it as far as just pretty much knowing where you come from, especially for kids, because I feel like we have a lot of kids who are just here. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really understand that they have a purpose, and they don't really understand that the gifts that they have, God can use in any way. And by learning about people in the past and just knowing that God can use you in any way, to be bold and to stand up for what is right and what you believe in and things like that. Like, just learning about these people that use the natural gifts that they had to
Mm-hmm.
be able to make change, I feel like, and just have a purpose. Because sometimes I see a lot of kids, they're just here, you know, just going through life. They have no reason for doing the things that they can't tell you why they do the things they do, or don't do. And I just feel like this kind of gives them somebody to look up to that
That's a that's an
may.
excellent segue. That's an excellent segue into the next series of books that you have. Now, I also see that you have Kwanzaa books and those type. but I hear that you're working on a book for boys and girls in regard to affirmations
Yes.
and dealing with the spiritual side of them. So
Mhm.
we're working on the history, the mental, and now the spiritual and affirmations as well.
Yes. So this was actually um going to be my first book when I first
Mhm.
started doing the coloring books. But I just wasn't ready to do it. I did this series first. But this book, it just pretty much just kind of teaches kids, like I said, about that purpose, about who they are, that they're here for a reason. But it also backs it with Bible verses. So
Okay.
I mean, we can sit here and tell a child, well, be confident. And it's like, why do I need to be confident? Or be bold. Why do I need to be bold? And so,
Mhm.
or you're special. Like I talk to kids all the time, be like, do you know how talented and special you are? And they'll be like, there's nothing special about me. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So and these are elementary kids and they really believe this because you'd be surprised at what some of these kids deal with. So just to back it with scripture and just say you here for a reason. God tells us this, and so then you can be this. So that's pretty much the book. So it's going to be the same affirmations, the same scriptures backing each affirmation, but
Mhm.
one book is just going to be for little girls and one is going to be for boys. So it'll just be two different different illustrations.
You just don't know how much that warms my heart. You're literally saying, I am going to change our future. I am going to make it better than what I see currently. And that
Mhm.
is truly, truly dope. Once again, just to reset, we are here with Kansas City Public Schools illustrator and art teacher, Krystal Wadlington, aka Krystal the Creative. Go ahead, please look her up on all socials at Krystal.the.creative. Just Google it, and I'm sure you'll see her on Facebook, on Instagram, and many others as well. Krystal, I
Yeah.
cannot let you come on this show, sister, and not talk about sports. You
Mm.
come from a great sports town, historical wise and currently. First up, Major League Baseball. Now, before I get to how it hits home with you, Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter are embattled in a what looks like something that could be really catastrophic to the LA Dodgers in regard to gambling and possible theft of Shohei Ohtani's money from his interpreter that has, since this story came out, has been fired.
Mm-hmm.
Major League Baseball is still investigating to see if Mr. Ohtani had any doings in this. Well, back in the day, there was a guy that could literally run on walls like he was Spider-Man. He played football, he played baseball. His name is Bo Jackson, and he's getting inducted into the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame. As a kid, what did Bo Jackson mean to you? Almost in a creative sense.
I mean, I remember like I had to be about 8, 9, maybe.
Uh-huh.
I do remember hearing about him. I never got to see him play, but he just made baseball exciting because
Yeah.
this might make some people mad, but to me, baseball is kind of boring. So, so
Some would say.
he made it exciting to watch.
Yeah.
So it was like, I come from a basketball family, so I'm
Okay.
used to the movement and the thing. So Bo
Yeah.
Jackson made it exciting to watch. And I do recall, like, at that time, the police officers used to have these baseball cards that they would, ride around. They would give out to the kids and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I just remember everybody wanted that Bo Jackson. I don't know anybody that ever got it, but that was like the goal when they would hand them out was like, you got Bo Jackson? No, you got Bo Jackson, and it was just exciting to just be able to see your city just
Yeah. Yeah.
just
On
you
that
know
national stage like that.
on the national stage like that, especially with
Yeah.
his commercials, the Bo Nose
Yeah.
commercials, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like in a creative sense, just him being able to come in and just be who he is and still make an impact, which,
True.
kind of goes with my mission. Just, you be who you are so you can make an impact.
That's
I
true.
was one of them kids, I was really quiet.
Uh-huh.
And I always felt like, oh, I got to learn how to talk to people and this. No, God can use that anyway. Just like
That's
Bo
right.
Jackson probably went, they probably told him, you running up walls and you will, but he used it and made the impact that he made. So, that's kind of how I feel in a creative sense, just kind of showing you just use what you have, in whatever arena that you're in.
No doubt. Bo Jackson, and this is how it relates back to Memphis. Bo Jackson, when he was coming through the minor leagues, he played for what was then called the Memphis Chicks. So that's a full circle moment right there. But yeah, Bo Jackson was awesome. To play
Yeah.
with him on a video game just really showed his awesomeness. Weird how I'm gonna correlate that to that, but playing with him when he was with the Los Angeles Raiders in football, and then on baseball games as well, he was just just an absolutely beast out there, and the precursor to athletes like Charlie Ward, Deion Sanders, these multiple sport athletes that can do more than one thing. Coming up in a second, we're going to talk more about the entertainment. Got hip hop and the feds. Your one of your favorites, Issa Rae. We're going to also talk about Beyonce. And real quick, Glorilla. Glorilla was on CNN. And
What?
she said something. I just want to mention this. She said a phrase that is forever be embedded in my memory banks. She said, and I quote, at the end of the day gotta end. Well,
That
I
sounds
think
like
it's
a
gonna
Memphis
end it.
phrase. That sounds like something the old people say in Memphis.
Exactly.
But it's true though.
Exactly.
Absolutely true.
And I'm just happy that Glorilla stayed in her lane. She was on CNN. They kind of slid something in there. They wanted her to talk a little bit of politics, but she was like, nah, I'm gonna
You
stay
know,
right
I
here.
saw I saw a video of
Mhm.
her and Joe Biden
Yes.
and had him saying, "Yeah, Joe." And I was like, that is so catchy. Like they really that needs to be like one of his songs at his next rally. Like to
Yeah,
remix. That'll be that'll
that'd
be
be
big.
epic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I said last week, I'm all for Joe and Glow for 24. I'm all for that. I'm all
Yeah.
for that. Next up, the NFL has voted to oust the hip drop tackle as far as in rules to make the league more safer. Also, the NFL has radically revamped the kickoff rules to improve safety, but also to increase exciting and fun play. That's courtesy of NBCNews.com. Your Kansas City Chiefs are on the top of the mountain and
Absolutely.
have been at least since 2020.
Absolutely.
What does Patrick Mahomes mean to Kansas City, to the city, to the community right now? He's getting into that Michael Jordan stratosphere right now, in my respect. What do you think?
This goes back. I think it's like as a native Kansas City, and we appreciate Patrick Mahomes because for a long time, the
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs they were horrible. I mean, I'm not gonna say they was horrible, but they just could not make it past a certain point. It was like
That's true.
we were
Very true.
watched, constantly disappointed, things like that. So just being able to just come from that to
Yeah.
be like back to back Super Bowl champs,
Mm-hmm.
like that's amazing. Like it's crazy. And then like seeing people like my dad, who's like in his mid 60s, he's been watching the Chiefs since he was probably a teenager. I don't know when the Chiefs, how old he was when they first started, but just watching the Chiefs that long and just seeing his excitement about it
Yeah.
and seeing a lot of the older people that have been through so much with the Chiefs that their excitement is like just priceless.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, it was great. It's good to see it. And just being able to, I mean, to get a Super Bowl. Like, if you would have told the people in Kansas City this probably 20 years ago, we probably would have laughed at y'all like, yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be nice. But we would probably just like, yeah, we might win one, but to win 3 and 2 of them back to back.
Yeah, yeah,
So
3 and 4 years. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
I
the
remember those
vibe here
90
is just amazing.
Chiefs. I'm sorry.
I said the vibe here is just amazing when it comes to the
Yeah.
Chiefs.
Speaking of vibe, I hate to ask this question. I hate that it happened, and I hate that I have to ask this question. But I'm in the news field, and I get paid to ask tough questions. Speaking of the Chiefs and the success and the vibe in the city, we had a situation in the Kansas City parade, and I am so happy that you and your kids and your family were not subject to any of the nonsense that happened during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. But from what the best that you can, articulate to us, what was the sentiment or what has been the sentiment around the city in regard to the shooting that happened at the Kansas City Super Bowl parade?
I think, everybody's just has this feeling of like coming together. Like, that's kind of been the sentiment of it. Was
Coming
just
together.
pretty much coming together and just supporting each other, like the people that were there. And then the lady that got killed, which is just horrible. She was a popular DJ here in the Latino community, and just they, just been honoring her life and just showing things about her and things. So just, my heart goes out to her family and what they're having to deal with. And just knowing that a day that started out just so great. I mean, it was just like, it was it was a nice day. It was warm. I mean, it started out a little cold, but it was warm. It was nice. Like, we were down there on the parade route. And it was like everybody was just getting along. Everybody was, celebrating and everything. And I'm just thankful because I wanted to go to the stage where everything happened. And it was, I had my youngest son with me. My 2 oldest weren't there, and my sister. And then, we went down there because, like I said, my dad, this would have been his first parade because the other parades were just way too cold. So, and my sister was like, no, it gets too rowdy. We don't want to take kids. So we set up along the parade route, and everything was just going good. And then just to know that something like this happened that didn't have to happen over something silly, it was just, from the reports that I hear and everything, was just, I guess, an argument. And it was just something so senseless that changed a lot of people's lives, and just knowing that there were children that were hurt is just horrible. But
to your point, it definitely has changed lives. I was looking at a news report in regard to Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati and Kansas City are not in any way connected, other than, NFL teams. But I truly feel like what happened in Kansas City directly is affecting Cincinnati, because they usually have a very big firework celebration during the 4th of July. And they are canceling it for this year and for the foreseeable future because they said it's gotten so big that they have a hard time securing it for everyone. And with situations like that have happened in our near future, in our recent past, that is something that we definitely have to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Chris Jones re-signed. Of course, Patrick Mahomes is still there. Andy Reid is what I call the best NFL head coach currently, with the retirement or the moving on of Bill Belichick. To listen to Patrick Mahomes at the end of the year and during the parade, looks like he's going for a three-peat. What you think?
I mean, we can do it. Yeah. We all, yeah. I support that. Go for a three-peat. Yeah.
I ain't mad at that one.
That would be amazing.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that would be amazing. We all behind that three-peat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I ain't mad at that. I ain't mad at that right there. Let's go to the political front really quick. Speaking of tough fights, it means it's time for the one mo. And the one mo usually comes from the political front. Most times it's solely from President Biden. Uncle Joe, Stimmy, 46, aka Cocaine Wayne. Well, Vice President Kamala Harris toured a Planned Parenthood clinic in Minnesota on this past Thursday, becoming what is believed to be the first president or vice president ever to visit a clinic that provides abortion services in U.S. history. My question for you, Krystal Wadlington, aka Krystal the Creative, when it comes to body positivity and women's images in an artistic space, and when I say artistic space, I mean publications as far as magazines, newspapers, film, TV, the internet, what would you like to see more of, and what would you like to see less of? I threw a curveball. I did. It was like an 11th hour question. I was like, you know what? I wonder what Krystal feel about this.
I mean, we have this whole thing as far as like, I can dress how I want and it shouldn't matter. And I would like to see less of that. I don't know how to put this. I would like to see more of women just being more mindful of the image they put out there.
Okay.
Because
speak to that. I want to hear that. Go forward.
Because a lot of what I'm seeing is, and I'm talking about like mostly singers and things like that. It's just a lot of
everybody naked and got see-through clothes on. I say
it's a lot of that. You know, everybody has their own way of expressing themselves and things like that. That's fine. That's you. But I have just always been taught, just think about the message that you're sending.
Amen.
You know, and think about who's looking at you. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think a lot of our young girls don't realize that, especially in this day and age with social media and the internet and images that live forever. True. That sometimes you got to have that thought, you know, that sexy isn't always just let me show as much skin as possible.
This is true.
You know,
because men are going to like you regardless if you have on a snowsuit. We're going to be like, man, she's picking that snowsuit.
Yeah. So you don't have to show everything to get attention. And I think a lot of, you know, especially with us women, it's like we always say, well, it's my body and I want to do this and you shouldn't think of me a certain way. But then you put the image out there that makes people think of you a certain way, you know, and it's like, I'm not saying you got to walk around with a turtleneck and a skirt down to your ankles, but you do have to think about the image you putting out there. Is this the image you want to put out there? And also where you are.
Fine line between modesty and
like it can be done tastefully. And I think a lot of things I see is just not done tastefully.
You said a lot right there. You said a lot right there because you said images lasting forever. There was a movie that came out last Thursday, the Freaknik doc on Hulu. I haven't watched it yet. I hadn't had time. You saw it?
I did.
That. I mean, what you said is so true because it's a lot of people that are judges, political figures, even pastors down there at ATL or other places.
Yeah, grandmothers.
Yeah, go ahead. You can take it from there. Go ahead.
No, I will say this on the documentary when they did show some of the images that were not tasteful, they did blank the person's face out.
They did.
Yeah, on a lot of them, they did blank the person's face out. But but there you do have to think about that now. Then it was like, people had camcorders, but who was gonna see it? Because you didn't have the internet. But
I'm gonna say right now, in the next 10, 15 years, they ain't gonna blank your face out.
No, they
Just say
won't.
that right now.
What if we
If
post
you
it
put it
as
on the
soon
internet,
as they take a picture?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I'm hearing a lot about how these. When you go for jobs and things, they looking you up on
Mm-hmm.
social media.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Most
I'm not
definitely.
saying you can't have fun, but you gotta think about those things, And I'm thinking more on the end of I
That's
teach.
that mama coming out right there.
Yeah, that's the mama coming out. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I teach young girls. I teach my school is kindergarten through 8th. So I do teach middle school girls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to sometimes get them to understand, you got to think about what you're putting out there. You can't just pop off all the time. You can't just put this up. You can't say this, even though you want to.
Mm-hmm.
I have a saying that like with my business, and I'm gonna be making some shirts soon. Is where it's off of 2 Timothy 1:7, and it's the guy has not given us spirit of fear, but a power, love, a sound mind. So I say like be bold, show love, but that last part, have a sound mind, make wise choices. And I think a lot of times we make choices in the moment of how we feel that are not wise choices, and that kind of goes along with a lot of what's being put out there. You got to make wise choices
Yeah.
and think about more than just right now.
Most definitely. Most
That
definitely.
comes with age.
Yeah.
You
Listen,
learn that. I may not have thought this way at 21, but you know, I need
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Don't make permanent decisions off of temporary feelings or thoughts. And I'm
exactly.
definitely a proponent of what you're speaking of right there, Krystal. Um, as we move into the entertainment report, first, T-shirt Tuesday. I do have on my Fish University polo back from the time when I was working in the Fish Sports Information Department. And
Mhm.
also, this will be a great time to let you know again who we have on the show. Her name is Krystal the Creative. She is an art and illustration teacher, but more importantly, an illustrator of a amazing series of African American and African centered books, coloring books. And she teaches at KCP's signature school. It's an African centered college prep school, K through 8, as she has already mentioned. And also, they focus on African and African American history. As we go into the entertainment portion of today's show, hip hop is crazy right now. Diddy, they looking for that man. Russell Simmons,
No. Diddy's
I'm gonna have
gone.
to talk more about Diddy next show. Russell Simmons got served some papers, and they trying to put a lawsuit against him for some sexual misconduct, and that's courtesy of ashowbiz.com. If you want more on that information or the next story that I'm about to say, make sure you go to facebook.com/surround sound podcast, and you can hear more about that. But thirdly, Cardi B. She said she plans on suing the LAPD following an incident at her home earlier this month, where she says they made her take her clothes off. Like,
What?
it's wild. That's courtesy of hiphopdx.com.
Hmm.
In regard to hip hop, what would you? And I'm like, I know that you're a big SZA fan. I know you're a big R&B fan. You're a big Her fan. But when I say hip hop, I don't just mean rap. I'm incorporating neo soul, R&B, and rap music into this question. Where do you want to see hip hop go, or what do you think about hip hop currently?
Currently, um, I don't even know. It's
Tell us
I
about
think
who you do like. Then, what do you like about SZA and Her in regard to the other stuff that's going on in music today?
with them, I like their artistry kind of like their lyrics. I listen a lot to lyrics. So if it doesn't make sense to me, then I probably won't like the song. So just hearing them, I'd like SZA how she puts her songs together, tells a story. It's just different, you know. And her, I just like her voice. I like, you know, how she writes her music and things like that. So I'm big on if you could sing and if the lyrics sound good, like if it's a good story, you know, then I'm you know, probably would like the song. I think when I think of where hip hop is going, I think especially you got to tie in a lot of the social media. I kind of wish we didn't know so much of their business.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Like,
man.
you know, like I don't I really don't want to know so much of their business and what they're putting out, but
Uh-huh.
I think of just a lot of the, you know, image. Like when we talked about just the
Don't
image,
you
I
don't
think
want to know that Cardi B and Offset had a argument Wednesday
yeah,
night? We would just rather
yeah,
not.
like that's the part I don't like. Like this,
Mhm.
you know, everything is out there
Yeah,
and there's no mystery, no privacy, no, you know, nothing like that. Everything is dissected and overanalyzed.
true,
Um,
true.
also, you know, I just look at especially a lot of the women in hip hop. I wish everything wasn't so sexual all the time.
I'm with
You
you.
know, because we like I say, I always think about the kids. Like when you know got kids, it's just all they want to listen to is Sexy Red, and I'm like, why?
I, we were,
I ask them why. Read the
it was
lyrics
a
to
family
me.
discussion
If you
about
can't,
Sexy Red
yeah,
this
if you
past
can't
week.
read the lyrics to me in my class, no, you can't listen to it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, I just wish it was just more thoughtfulness, more like I think of hip hop, people telling a story, you know, people putting the words together and
Mhm.
you know, you know, metaphors and things like, and this we just got so far away from that. It's just what is the most shocking thing I could say to get attention right now?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
wish we would move less towards that, less away from that, and more towards just get back to just using my music to tell a story and to, you know, speak on things.
The the understanding, one thing that I want to see, the understanding of what is and what is not appropriate is something that I want to see come into vogue with hip hop. Hopefully, this situation that's going on with Drake and J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar will ignite a fuse where a little bit of more mature, growner type of vibe will run through hip hop.
Mhm.
Like back in the '90s when you had the Public Enemies, the Tribe Called Quest, those and so Queen Latifah and more in the like. I mentioned her name earlier. Her name is Issa Rae.
Mhm.
When we talked pre-show, you said, and I quote, she started from the bottom, put a ton of people on, and truly uses her platform. I know I gave the bulk, but what do you like? What do you feel about Issa Rae? I want you to just pull on like just your emotion. What did she say to you when you saw Insecure or Awkward Black Girl for the first time? What did it say to you from an artistic standpoint, from a black person standpoint, from a woman's standpoint?
Well, the first thing I noticed that when I was watching Awkward Black Girl, it was just funny. Like
Mm,
it was funny without it trying to be funny. You know how you got some people that just they try so hard to be funny and it was just naturally funny, like even the smaller things. Like even when, you know, she pulled up to the stop sign and was rapping and the person was there and she trying not to look like and it's relatable because
yeah.
everybody has done that. You like, oh, this is kind of long. I don't want to look over there. And I think that's what drew us in was like it was very relatable. And I heard her talk about how when she started Insecure, how they wanted to change the name because, and she was like, no, because she said at the time it was like something about, it was doing that black girl magic. And she said, what about if you don't know your magic yet? You know, what if you one of them black girls that everything ain't working out or you don't have it all figured out? And I think that's really why people gravitate so much to her content, to her shows, is because it's like, I don't have it figured out. I'm just as messed up sometimes as Issa, you know, or just as confused as Molly, you know, and it's like just that part of it just being very relatable and very much a story that's like, that could be my story or anybody's story. Like, I think, and then also at the time you had a lot of coming out is all black stories. You had to grow up in the hood. They sold drugs. They was in the club. You was a former stripper, and that ain't everybody's story. I grew up in the suburbs. You know what I'm saying? I grew up. It wasn't a whole lot of black people. Then I moved to a city, Memphis, where it was mostly black people. So it's like, that's my story.
That is so true.
Yeah, so I mean, just the relatability, and then also just learning how she just takes care of people. Like, it's not all about her, you know. Yeah, I'm this big time name and things, but I'm gonna bring you on, and you might be an intern, but then on my next show you might be a writer, and then on that next show you might be a showrunner. But I'm gonna keep helping you get to that next level. And that's kind of like how I try to do. Like, if I know somebody that's doing something good and I know that I can help them, I'm gonna try to help them, you know, without saying it's gonna dim my light because you shining right now. We can all just make it together. And that's the one thing I like, you know, about, well, a couple things.
Yeah, go ahead. You can tell us. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I am. I like. It's awesome when you can do interviews with people. I mean, to the point that you just made. It's when you come across good people. I want everybody to know about their good person.
Yeah.
And I'm thoroughly enjoying what you're saying, what you're telling us, because it's remarkable and it needs to be said. Definitely. In just a second, I want to hear more about what coloring does for children. But before we get to that, a couple of things. We were just talking about Issa Rae. She has won or will win an award for outstanding character voiceover performance in a motion picture. She won that at this year's 2024 NAACP Image Awards. Big shout out to Issa Rae for all the reasons that you just said and for winning that particular award. Okay. I think in the last week of International Women's History Month, we would be remiss if we did not, in some way, talk about Beyonce.
Okay.
We just gonna talk about Beyonce just because. Real talk. Beyonce got a new album out or coming out called Cowboy Carter. And as I mentioned last week, Beyonce said it's not a country album, it's a Beyonce album. Okay? Put that over there. Okay. Now, Beyonce has what I'm gonna call not a beef, but I think Beyonce has this simmering rivalry. It's like rice in a pot. You know, it's bubbling. It ain't quite, you know, but it's bubbling with Erykah Badu.
Okay.
Badu said, and I agree, but Badu said on her last album, which I think is the Renaissance album, I think, she had the same similar type of hat that Erykah Badu had on or wears. That's true, because when I saw it, that's the first person I thought of.
Yeah, me too.
Well, when the artwork from this album came out, she bared a striking resemblance to one Erykah Badu. Now, me what you think about Beyonce, period. Is she overrated? Is she underrated? Like, what you feel in regard to Beyonce?
I mean, I don't feel like she's overrated. She's a great entertainer. She puts on a good show.
Ooh, ooh,
I
but
don't really, I don't buy her music, but
okay.
I'm not gonna take anything away from her and just say, oh, I hate Beyonce, because it is. I mean, she do what she's supposed to do. She sells her music, people love it, things like that. I'm not gonna talk bad about her, but I
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna just ask you flat
I'm
out.
not
I'm gonna ask
I'm not in the beehive, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not in the beehive, but I'm not gonna sit here and just say she's not great. I mean, she's a very good entertainer. She puts on a good show. She's, from what I've seen,
you. Okay.
she's a very hard worker in her craft. So
Let
I
me
can't,
ask you this
I can't
flat out.
knock her for that.
Huh?
I said I
So,
can't knock her for that. She,
oh, okay. Entertaining wise or entertainment wise, okay. We're gonna talk about flat out singing. When it comes to her, Jennifer Hudson, what's the chick that's from England, Adele?
mm-hmm.
Which one? Okay, in regard to them, even we're gonna throw in a Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey.
Oh, come on now.
All of them now in a room. Is she average now? Is she in 5th place now?
I believe. I
Ooh,
mean, Beyonce
talk
don't
to me,
flat
Krystal.
out sing. She's not a flat out singer. I mean, like, who can you compare to Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey?
I just
I
threw them
mean,
in there.
nobody. But like, I think voice wise, she's not a flat out singer like that.
Mm.
Like, I would say this: if you could sing and give me goosebumps when you singing, then I know you're a flat out singer. And I've never had that with Beyonce. But her songs, they sell because I guess she know her lane. It's not gonna be the flat out singing. It's gonna be the dancing. It's gonna be the lyrics. It's gonna be, I'm gonna change this beat and I'm gonna have something different. So
She stays in her lane, in her
she
vocal
stays in
lane.
her lane, and it
Yeah.
works.
You ain't
But
gonna hear her. You're not gonna hear her trying to hit a Mariah Carey-esque
no,
or Whitney Houston-esque high note. No, you're not. She's
no,
not gonna do it.
like, yeah, you can't really compare to Whitney Houston and Mariah
Well,
Carey.
the only reason why I even bring up Whitney and Mariah and Jennifer and Adele is because there is a contingent of people, of women, of men that really think she is an awesome, above average, I would even say great singer. So
Well, you gotta think those
I
people
ain't
are
mad at that. I'm just
you got some people who I don't want to say worship her, but
true.
it's like she can't do no wrong. And that's when you come into the issue. Like, you should never have a person that you idolize that much that you feel like nothing they can do is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just my opinion. But that's so can you really take their opinion if they're not being fair? You know what I'm saying? If they're leaning all the way to this side and not listening to it like objectively and just, really listening, do I really take their opinion?
I mean, I feel you. I'm
Do I
with you
hold
on
their
that.
opinion?
I'm with
Not
you.
really. I
I'm
don't,
with you.
because you're gonna, like, look, you're gonna, whatever she do, you're gonna say is great. So I mean, that's good for you, but that don't mean it's true.
Okay. I'm with you. I'm with you. I just, it's not even an I just, as if I have a differing thought process. I'm not in the beehive either. What I do know, and I've said this for years, I've said this since about 2016, and I said it last week. I want a Beyonce rap album.
And she
I've heard
might put
people
one
say
out.
that's what I want. That's what I want, because the girl can rap.
Yeah.
Real talk. She might not write her lyrics, or if she does, don't. Who cares? The girl can rap. She got flow. That's what I want. That's what I want. But that's
That might
neither
be
here.
the next thing. You never know. Because who would
Yeah.
have thought she would put out a country? Well, not she doesn't say it's country, but a country album.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, that's just sometimes I guess when you get to that level, you got to challenge yourself.
Yeah. She's
And this
pushing the
is
limits.
her challenge,
She's pushing
push
the
the
limits.
limit. And I
We
can't, do what you do.
she's being a creative.
Exactly.
Once again, we are here with Krystal Wadlington, illustrator of a series of books. One of is called the Bold Leader series of books. It is a coloring book geared for children ages 3 to 10, early childhood. I hear, and this will be my last question for you. So I really hope you take a kinship to Bo Jackson and knock this one out of the park. Um, I hear there is a development that children get just from coloring. Is this true?
That is absolutely true. It's and that's something that we as uh parents have kind of gotten away from because we're so quick to put them on an iPad and things. But just the art of them coloring, even if they scribble,
Mm-hmm.
um, learning how to grip that pencil, that's they're developing fine motor skills. And when you developing those fine motor skills, it's connected to your brain because it's working together. And you got to think about, I know when I was in school, we used to have to take notes. And when you would write stuff down, it's easier to remember,
Yeah.
instead of typing it up. I mean, like the actual art of writing it. So just
Mm-hmm.
kids coloring, it helps them develop those fine motor skills to get them ready to start writing. And also it helps with focus. It helps with cognitive skills. It helps with confidence. Um, I mean, you just be surprised. Just kids like my students, they would rather color than anything, color or free draw. Like if I try to give them a project, it's like I just want a free draw because it's developing that brain, that creativity, that expression, things like that. Um, and then when I start with like my kindergartners, when they first come in, that's the first thing we work on is color. And you can kind of tell the kids that really don't use those crayons, they have a hard time controlling it and being able to, get it inside the lines or even control it. But just the development over the school year is just, amazing that you would see. So just, something as simple as a pack of crayons and a coloring book, or even just a piece of paper, just does a lot for the development of kids that we kind of got away from.
When you say it boosts confidence, I agree
Yeah.
because back in the day, all even up until present time, if you have good penmanship, you think you're better than everybody.
Yeah.
Like people always say, well, you have chicken scratch or you write too small. But while they over here like you hear me, and it's like
Mhm.
I feel you. I think that does promote confidence, and it's amazing that fine motor skills are developed with drawing, even scribbling, writing as well. I mean, you can use that in sports. Even we were just talking about baseball. You
Yeah.
can use that in
Hand-eye
baseball being hand-eye
coordination.
coordination. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's levels to it, like there's different levels. So at first is the scribbling stage where they do scribble. So that's why I really talk to parents when they're, they come to, when I'm out selling the books and they say, well, I would get it for them, but all they do is scribble. And I'm like, but they're supposed to.
Yeah, they're
It's
just
it's not
strengthening.
the book is not just for them to make it pretty. It's for them to color, and then it, in each page it has a different, has a little biography, and for them to learn. So it's
Right.
not just for them to make it pretty. Let them scribble over the paper. It's okay because
Mhm.
eventually that scribble will turn into drawing, or it will turn into they're able to stand the lines. They're, you know what I'm saying? So you got to start somewhere. And that's why I really, say you can give this to an infant, let them scribble in it. It's
Mm.
okay. Just make sure they don't eat the crayon.
That's
But
real.
yeah.
That's real. That's real. Krystal, as we let you go for today, first of all, we definitely thank you for your time. I know it's spring break, and teachers need more breaks. They need more pay and all these things. So the fact that you gave us an hour out of your spring break, we definitely, for lack of a better phrase, we appreciate it, young lady.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
No problem at all. Where can teachers go to get your books for next February, for the end of this year, for the start of next year, for the summertime, for their time, for my time, for yours? Where can we go to get your books?
You can go to my website at www.krystalthecreative.com. You can order there. If you're a teacher and you would like to order some for your classroom, I would suggest you order there. I do wholesale and bulk orders. So the more you order, the more discounts you get. Or you can go to Amazon. They are on Amazon if you want to use your Amazon Prime. However, you cannot do bulk ordering and get the discount on Amazon Prime. So you can either go to Amazon or you can go to my website, www.krystalthecreative.com.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Once again, I thank you for helping us to close out Women's History Month. I have never met you, Krystal, but to hear a dear friend of mine, how he talks about you.
Oh,
you my sister. You my sister. And it's a pleasure for me to do this. In short, keep on doing what you're doing, and we're definitely going to support Krystal the Creative's vision and the Bold Leaders series, the Black History series, African Kings and Queens series, Harlem Renaissance series, and the STEM series of coloring books that you have for our young people.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. No problem, Krystal. You have a great rest of your day. A happy spring break, all right?
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That was Krystal the Creative, aka Krystal Wadlington. She is an amazing talent. She has developed history books for early childhood education. I mean, like she said earlier, she's brought about the likes of Marcus Garvey, Shirley Chisholm, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ida B. Wells. I'm talking about who's who of Black history. That is truly, truly awesome. Make sure you go and Google her, Krystal the Creative, and you'll find her on all social media. You also be able to see different some of her different works, so you'll be able to get these things for your children and your loved ones. Now it's time for the sign of the times, and the title is historical importance. One thing that this weekend taught me is history repeats itself. There's no way around it. Your best bet is to learn from it. Since the beginning of 2024, I've watched a countless amount of documentaries. They all said similar things. And it reminded me of a Bible verse, Ecclesiastes 1:9. What has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. You know, years and years and years later, the great and legendary Nas remixed that verse. He said, there's nothing new under the sun. It ain't how you're doing it, it's how it's done. And that's cool to remix history and historical passages from time to time. It's okay to say it in such a way where the generation that is present understands it just a little bit better, or it hit homes or resonates just a little bit more. but changing history is another story. I read something where they're saying that the Bible is going to be reinterpreted and redistributed. I know that there are different versions of the Bible, and when you get to those certain versions of the Bible, certain passages have completely different meanings than some of the older Bibles. We'll leave that right there, though. Getting back to the documentaries, once again, there's nothing new under the sun. I saw the Wilt Chamberlain doc. And to be honest, LeBron James is just the reinvented version of Wilt Chamberlain. When it comes to scoring, when it comes to player mobility, when it comes to being an advocate for those players, LeBron James is just the new Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, let's go with NFL-wise. As we talked about earlier, the NFL has and currently is adapting rules from now defunct football leagues, most notably the USFL and the XFL. And then, going back to docs, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, and Rick James. Those docs gave me insight on the dangers of substance abuse. I only said those three examples to give the age-old adage. Those that do not learn from history are certainly doomed to repeat it. For everyone here at the Surround Sound podcast, thank you for tuning in to this week's show. Next week, we have boxing owner of Punches and Bunches, Mr. Tremaine Cook. He'll be on the show. We'll be talking about Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, Anthony Joshua, and a few more others. In the words of the scholar Jerry Springer, be good to yourself and each other.